5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Hey, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us. It is episode 105, and it is Thanksgiving-tastic tonight in the... Yeah, I made it up right now, Hannah. I got to make up words because it would be boring if we didn't have our own made-up words, you know? But it is it's Thanksgiving around here.
You do say you have the best words, and I think someone disputes you. I'm pretty sure there's someone out there.
Who do you feel disputes me in that one, Hannah? I need to know who disputes me because I might have to have, I don't know, a showdown or something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the orange sewer monster that lives underneath the White House. But
Cheeto Man? You think Cheeto Man disputes this?
You got to give him credit though. He pardoned that turkey today. I just found out
he did pardon the turkey. I don't think he. Oh, he did. Wait, he did pardon the turkey. So there was rumors he was going to unpardon the turkey, and maybe that was just like fake news. But
I didn't know. News. I just found this out today that they didn't actually pardon the turkey up until like Reagan and Bush, H.W. Bush. Until then, like they were just sent, like the turkey was just sent there, and like they would put costumes and goggles on them, and then they would be like, "This is the Thanksgiving turkey," and then the White House would just kill the bird and eat it.
No way!
Really? They didn't do the presidential pardon thing until like Reagan, I guess, was the beginning of it, where they're like, "We're going to give this bird, a free life or whatever," and it's just been tradition. But up until that, they were like, "Here's the bird, and we're going to eat this bird right now."
They're like, "Yeah, we buy the best birds that look the best, and we're going to make sure it tastes the best." It's kind of like the new Bob's Burgers episode. He wants to do this whole preparation, can't do a preparation, goes to Teddy's house, and then has to, help Teddy prep the turkey for, his Thanksgiving, and, gets all into it. And it's kind of like that. It's like, oh, I'm going to make it present good, but we're going to eat the fuck out of this.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, can you imagine now if, like, in today's world where vegans and vegetarians have a pretty prominent place in society, they've got a voice out there. There's lots of space for them to get their thoughts out. And if, like, Trump was like, "This is the bird," and then he didn't, like, pardon it, and he was just like, "Okay, take it out back and kill it," like the uproar that would happen, even more than, the standard would. I don't know. I just thought that would be fun if, like, we saw what they used to do now. I think it would be pretty interesting to see, because I didn't know that they just took the bird, into the kitchen and just did their way with it. But
I didn't either. I'll be honest, I didn't either. I guess I never cared because I've always eaten turkeys. But I guess that's kind of interesting, right?
Maybe that's a part of that Thanksgiving conspiracy of how they whitewashed American history. So they don't kill the birds. They didn't kill the Native Americans. You know how it works.
Yeah, we never killed the birds. We don't know what you're talking about. We just want to kill the Obama bird, because it's an Obama bird, and we know it's just a faulty bird on its own.
No, Obama really did kill his bird. He just told everyone that he pardoned it. That's I'm pretty sure that's what. Whatever. I don't know. How long are we gonna run on this bird stuff, man? Because I don't know.
we aren't. But later on tonight, we are going to hear about vegan Thanksgiving from an artist called Gray Music. And yes, this is an explicit episode, folks, because there's a little bit of swearing in it. But I thought it would be comical. We'll play it. We'll kind of talk through it. So, cool. That's kind of the good part about this later on. But to begin with, we have to talk about what's going on. So, we did a couple weeks ago, we did a episode where we talked with a sexual assault, domestic violence survivor, right? And we talked with Mel about her experiences, and we kind of talked a little bit with Stephanie about what was going on with the Weinstein case, and the economics of how men can abuse women. And so there's new media out there every day. It seems like there's new cases out there, which I guess really shouldn't be surprising to anybody, right? I mean, until recently, nobody's cared. And all of a sudden now it's this big thing, and now it's gaining, global attention. And what are we seeing from administration, right? What are we seeing from the administration? And so, for me, the big shock was the whole Al Franken thing. I won't say that I looked up to him. I won't say that he was my favorite individual, but I will say, he was a steady Democrat inside of the Senate, that kind of was able to, he was popular enough where he caught my attention. He was able to influence different things. And then all of a sudden, the case comes out about him. And the first thing I think is, holy crap, what a piece of shit. What's wrong with this dude? Like, why of all these people, like Louis C.K. was a letdown for me, but that I kind of already knew about that beforehand and kind of quit watching him. But, all of a sudden, now here's Al Franken. I didn't know about this. And, the sad thing is when we look to public figures, right? And people hero worship, and I won't say I hero worshiped Al Franken, but I did kind of look at him and say, hey, if we have to have a moderate in the Senate, this is the guy you want to go to. He's funny, he's, kind of, a politician, but he's kind of, comedian, and it kind of works all together. And he kind of hits both of my nature because I love comedians and I love, politics.
I had him in my short list of up and coming. So like he was a guy who was basically able to put out stuff. His questions when he was asking people for the nominations and for the Senate, and all the cabinet positions, he was just every time he did his questions, they were right there. He destroyed Betsy DeVos with the questions on whether or not a student is proficient or is growing. That was just an absolute spot on. The guy, he's done well in a short time. He's only been reelected once, so I think he's got 2 terms under his belt. And I just saw him as an up and coming. He hadn't been here for a long time, but he had, the wits about him for catching that Hollywood starlet that seems to be a necessary thing. You need to be kind of a media savvy person to survive the upper class echelon of politics these days. And this is, now this is the third situation with him, with Al Franken. The big breaking news story was Leanne Tweeden. And then there's another woman who said that Al kind of sort of groped her when they were doing a family photo or at a fairground. This is when he was actually a senator. And then there's some photos that came out of Al messing around with Arianna Huffington for the Huffington Post photo shoot they had, where they were kind of goofing around. So we don't know if it was kind of complicit or whatever, but it's just, there's a case building against him and we're not sure exactly what's going to happen. He says he's not going to step down. He wants to do a Senate ethics committee to investigate him to see whether or not he should have any kind of, reprimand.
I say again, and maybe this is just me as an individual, but to me, it almost seems like, hey, you need to go make an example out of yourself, right? We're not Republicans, for Christ's sake, and I don't mean that as I do mean that as a chide towards Republicans,
literal.
But for Christ's sake, we're not the Republicans here. We're not we didn't put a womanizer in office, for fuck's sake. We didn't actually do that. That wasn't something we did. I didn't vote for Trump. A lot of my friends didn't vote for Trump. A few did, but most of them did. And we didn't put that type of position, people in office. And so, to me, yeah, as much of a loss as it would be for Al Franken to step down, to me, it's almost like you need to make an example. You need to say, hey, we're going to rise above. We're going to actually be committed to, a moral high ground. Yeah, maybe you've asked forgiveness before and you've apologized. But for fuck's sake, if you go back and read his memoirs, and again, this is stuff I've been, I learned, and then I went and did the research for it because I was like, okay, he denied this and like played it off in his memoirs. Well, you go back and actually read the pages online, and he denies this, and he just plays this off as a joke. And it's like, well, dude, you apologized, and now all of a sudden here you are coming back saying, well, I don't know how much of a joke it was. And it's like, God damn it. Now I'm saying, step the fuck down, sit down. Let way for somebody else who is less blemish. And I'm not saying it's me because I don't want to fucking run for the Senate. But, I'm just saying there's lots of other credible people out there that could do these things. And you kind of just tarnish this name. You need to step down. You need to move away from the mic,
He could hurt the overall, this is basically the Democrats love to say they have the higher moral ground on this. And then Conyers just got in trouble for a senator from Michigan, or no, is he representative? Either way, one of the representatives from Michigan, Conyers, they basically did the research, and he had been paying off someone who he fired because she wouldn't accept his sexual advances, and so she filed a wrongful termination suit based on that, because obviously that's illegal, and he paid her off as far for the settlement instead of going to court, having this become a full-on thing. And they used some of his own like his position's money, so taxpayer money, to pay her off as they hired her in as an employee, and she got a payroll. So it didn't look like a payoff. It was under the radar. It was, essentially they couldn't find it until people started diving in. That's the same kind of stuff that's been going on in just politics itself, because it's been male dominated and they all just kind of try to sweep it under the rug. The stuff that, it's terrible, but it's terrible, but the stuff that's been going on now with Roy Moore is a much bigger deal. That's going to be the big issues, whether or not, because those are even worse than some of the things Trump said on, the hot mic when he was in there. He said basically you can do whatever you want. Roy Moore has been accused very similar to what Bill Clinton has, as actually trying to or raping women or young women and girls.
Yeah.
So
and that kind of leads us to the big point, right? We've talked about Al Franken. We've kind of talked through this, but the bigger point here, right, is that we do have a president of the United States who has been accused of sexual harassment. So I'm not going to accuse him of rape. I'm not going to accuse him of all these other things. We just stick with sexual harassment on a base level, right? He's been accused of this. He's been elected on the fact that he can say, hey, I'm going to do this and you can go fuck yourself, essentially. And people just accept it. And so this is what pisses me off, right? Like, I don't agree with him. I think he should remove himself from office too. But when we sit here and we look at things, he came out aggressively, and there's a couple of links in the description where we post these links where you can read through what Trump said. But he literally came out and said aggressively against Al Franken. He blasted him. He literally told Al Franken,
he called him Frankenstein.
Yes.
Al Frankenstein or whatever.
Exactly. And he goes, it's the Al Frankenstein picture. It's really bad. It speaks thousand words, 1,000 words. Where do his hands go in pictures 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 while she sleeps? Okay.
Where did yours go, Mr. Trump, when you bragged about being able to stick your hand right into women's genitalia? Like, you can't point finger and try to ridicule someone when you done the same damn thing in your own past.
So, and I get that, but if we take that and we just set that aside for just a second, we just look at what he's saying, right? He's lecturing him. So if it should not be acceptable that he gets to lecture Al Franken without himself stepping down, right?
Yeah,
I agree with that. But if we just take that and move just aside from that for just a second, he literally is attacking Al Franken, and he's saying, he says this. He says, and to think that just last week you were lecturing anyone who would listen to you about sexual harassment and respecting women. But what about the Leslie Stahl tape, right? Okay, that's fair, right? In all fairness, we can't criticize Trump for criticizing Al Franken. Like, we have to say thank you for calling him out. But what bothers me is literally as of Tuesday, he came out and supported Roy Moore.
Yeah,
Why? Why of all things? Yes, he is supporting him. He is literally He is
the White House
supporting him basically by saying we don't need a little liberal person in there. We don't need a Democrat like Jones. I don't care. You can condemn Roy Moore. You literally didn't bother to condemn Roy Moore. It's a passive attempt to just say, I don't know. It could be better this way.
I can overlook sex and rape and accusations as long as the politics and potentially it could be a win for me politically. To me, that is the exact opposite of what should be happening. You and I are both calling out a senator and Al Franken, basically saying, no, we're not cool with this. I'm going to call out Conyers, the Michigan representative. No, you should be gone. That's just the way it works. Like, I don't care. I would take a Republican elected whatever, and if the candidate was a full on like Roy Moore with the blue version of it, that's just the right thing to do. Leave the party aside. Protecting women and making sure women are treated right. That's the right thing to do. And you would think that we could all just put all of the bullshit aside and at least concentrate.
Exactly. And you know what? You know what the best part about this, Hannah, is? What? Let me tell you the best part about this. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell called out Roy Moore to drop out of the race. Now, that dude, in my opinion, is a piece of shit. I have zero respect for Mitch McConnell, I guess, outside of this discussion where he wants him to drop out of the race and cut ties with the Republican National Committee. Outside of that, I hate Mitch McConnell. Like, he's the turtle, he's going to be the slow guy. I mean, where's Jon Stewart here? Where's my Jon Stewart, soundbite here? But it's amazing. We have a guy that wants to fuck America over every single day of the week. But he's even saying, hey, Roy Moore, you're too much for me, man. And yet we can't have a president that actually stops. So we watched the president who couldn't bother to fucking call out white nationalists. And now we fucking have a president who doesn't want to call out sexual abusers. What the fuck is wrong with this picture here? Where the fuck do we live?
Mitch McConnell also has a little bit of an underlayer as to a kind of a political reason why he would go right after Roy Moore before any other GOP people did, is that Roy Moore basically beat down the candidate that Luther Strange that Trump and Mitch McConnell had propped up. Like, the existence of Roy Moore running in this election is an abomination to anything that, Mitch McConnell's leadership. The fact that he endorsed, and when he endorsed, the candidate against Roy Moore, he still lost. Like, if the leader of the Republican Party endorses the candidate you're running against in a Republican primary, that should be an automatic loss for the other person. And it didn't happen. So McConnell's got some blood in the water on this one. So there's a little bit more of a push for that.
And that's fair. But if we go back to, the whole Trump thing, it's not just that he essentially wouldn't discount, again, a sexual abuser. He literally said, I'll let you know next week. And literally what he was talking about is whether he's going to campaign with Moore. Now, I'm telling you right now, we don't like anarchy, right? In some aspects, we don't want there to be... We want a revolution, but we don't want a bloody revolution. But I'm telling you, when the president of the United States wants to campaign with a gentleman who's been accused of sexual assault, accused of sexually abusing minors... Why do we want a president that's want to campaign with him? I mean, think about what happened with Jared from Subway, right? I mean, that was a pretty quick takedown. I mean, that cocksucker, he's gone now. That was a pretty quick takedown once they got in hold of it. And so here we are. So yeah, okay, fine. Maybe Roy Moore is not Jared from Subway. Maybe Roy Moore doesn't have child pornography in his home computer, right? Fine, I'll grant that. But I'm not going to grant that, he's now being accused on several instances. And if we were looking at a black man, that guy would have been in jail already by now. Somebody would have arrested this dude and been like, hey, hold on a second. So we're talking about a rich old white man that supports Trump, that has supported the GOP. And now we're looking at him, people just saying, well, let's investigate. We'll just investigate this. And I'm saying, what the fuck? You can at least disavow that. Why are you going to go campaign with this dude? Why are you going to even leave the door open for it? To me, that tells that it goes back to a business sense. That all the Republican Party wants to do is create a business-like atmosphere where they can look aside, like they have done for fucking hundreds of years now, sexual assault, abuse of other individuals, abuse of women, abuse of minorities, and just say, hey, if it's profitable for me, even if it's not the correct way to go, I'm okay with it. And it actually kind of comes into this conversation I had yesterday with a gentleman, and I'm hoping to actually get him on the show. We'll see if it happens or not, because I don't know if I'm 100% sold on bringing him on the show, but his name is I believe his name is Roman, and he's running for Senate, and I believe he's out of Detroit, and he literally has decided that he's a progressive, right? He's like, I'm this big progressive, blah 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 blah, which is originally what drew me to wanting to have him on the show. He came out to say he's switching parties from the Democratic Party because he's sick of it. Samuel Ronan. Sorry, that's what his name is. Samuel Ronan. He's sick of the Democratic Party, and I don't disagree with him, And he has switched his ticket to the Republican side, but he's not going to compromise his morals. That's literally what he's saying, is that he's not going to compromise any of his morals or stances, but he's switching the Republican Party. And here, let me tell you why he's switching the Republican Party, Hannah. He's switching to the fucking Republican Party because that's the area of the state that is supporting of Republicans. Therefore, he thinks he has a better chance to run as a Republican than he does as a Democrat.
it's the ends justify the means in most cases with this kind of stuff. Trump is he is the embodiment of that. He'll do anything he has to get there. He doesn't care. Like, he did exactly what Steve Bannon told him. He did exactly what I can't remember the guy's name. The guy just got in all the trouble from Russia. Anyways, I mean, this is the example. Another one of those is that Trump will do whatever he has to win, and political wins mean more than the well-being of this country. I honestly hope he does go campaign with Roy Moore. I can't.
Why?
No, because if anything's going to happen, if Trump is out there holding hands with a guy who eventually is found guilty or is accused over and over and over again of this type of thing, all that's going to do is rub off more on Trump. It's going to make him look even worse. And anybody who's kind of like, when am I going to get my tax break? And then they get the tax bill in a little while here, and it's like, well, you're not getting any money back. Trump's not really helping you a whole lot. Oh, and he's out shaking hands with a guy who tried to rape a girl after she got off her shift at a restaurant. Like, that is, you know what I mean? That's going to push people who are in Trump's camp a little bit, but they're kind of like, I'm only here for the money, and the money doesn't show up, and they see a rapist on TV, they might be like, or an alleged rapist hanging out with the president on TV, they might be like, you know what, I am sick of this. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, fuck Trump. How about that? Can I just say that because it's an explicit episode? I can swear all I want right now. I don't know.
You have been.
You're right. I disagree with you. I think it's disgusting. I wish Trump would take the moral high ground. But I'll be honest, I don't expect it to happen any different than it has. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. We're going to go to commercial, prop another podcast up, and what we're going to do is when we come back, we have a positive story that we want to share with everybody about a Michigan law that has benefited over 200 unwanted newborns. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
Y'all ever wonder what it's like to be a redneck with empathy? Have you never heard of a Southerner who isn't a blathering bigot? Well, have I got the show for you? It's the Podunk Polymath Podcast, hosted by myself, Chris, and it's the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed-up Southern SJW and skeptic. You can find me and the show on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or your favorite podcatcher. Y'all stop on by and take it easy now, okay?
If you'd like to join the ranks of Patreons and sponsor the show, head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics. For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, you can help sponsor us, the hosts, and our charity of choice. Patreon helps Cellar Door Skeptics create better content, become better activists, and it's going to help you stay healthier by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink each week. Click the link in the notes of the show to sponsor us today because we bring the discussion with the sources.
This is C-Web from ParanormalSkepticAcademy.com, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. What was that?
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics, and we thought we'd put a little bit of happy music in here for our next segment because, I'll be honest, I mean, Hannah chose this segment, and this was actually a really good segment that we get to kind of talk about. There's a Michigan law that was founded to help newborns who are unwanted. And I said, well, at first I was like, that sounds horrible. But then I was like, well,
yeah,
is it really working? Does it help? And what's happening with it? And they actually had a recent article that kind of looked at the history of this. Over 200 newborns have been rehomed. So this is about as pro-life as I get, because I'm pretty pro-choice. Like this is a little hard for me, but I also believe that everybody should be given an option. And I believe that if women choose to carry it to term, but do not want it, there should be an option for them, especially if they feel that they can't, come out and say, hey, I have to abandon this child because of whatever reason. And so this law actually allows for women to take infants, and instead of leaving them in dumpsters or trash cans or in the wilderness, they can actually take them. And they can, I don't want to say donate, right? That kind of sounds horrible, but, essentially they can allow the child to be given to another family and given up for adoption without A, having to go through the system, and B, without having to get a felony for it. Because, again, if we want to reduce abortion, and I'm not saying we do, but if you want to look at the right side of life, right, and they talk about how they want to reduce abortions and they want to reduce this bullshit, right, this offers that kind of happy medium that allows for women to not have the abortion but give their child up for adoption without having to go through the system. And that's actually really good to me. That's actually kind of amazing, because if you think about it, again, like I said, it allows for the woman to remain anonymous. It allows for them to confidentially ensure that the baby is secure. It allows them to do what they need to do without having to worry about facing jail time. And we shouldn't be imprisoning people for abandoning their children. We should be working towards educating people to not have to abandon their children. And we should be working toward providing resources so people don't feel like they need to. This is one of those resources.
I agree entirely. This is a cool story. One of the reasons why I really like this story is we included the link into it, but the NPR interview was just awesome. It was one of the interviews where I was working and doing some stuff at work, and I stopped what I was doing and just listened, because this is something that I did not know about. And I mean, they're really doing a major service to. You always hear about the pro-life camp, and so this was an interesting area for something that I thought would be fun with you, because you're much more pro-abortion than I am. But I still, like, the people that are getting caught up in this are not going to be people like that are going to be even considering that. They're trapped in their situation. Either they can't afford an abortion, they can't get to it or get connected to it, or they literally cannot do it via their relief systems or the community or whatever they're in. Under this law, a biological parent may legally surrender an infant no more than 72 hours old to an emergency service provider. The law defines a qualifying emergency service provider as a uniformed or otherwise identified employee or contractor of a hospital, fire department, or police station who is inside the building and on duty, or a paramedic or emergency medical technician who responds to a 911 call. Like, these are the people that they're allowed to do it. And then the paramedic and emergency medical technician is something that was added recently, because a lot of times these people wouldn't go to the hospital, but when it's an emergency and a paramedic could get there, at least they could leave the child with them and be on their way. Because we're talking immigrants, we're talking people that we're not, they don't believe in it. But let's say we talk about abstinence-only education. So kids who are in ultra-conservative neighborhoods never learn about how they have sex, but they have the urges, and they get unwanted pregnancies, because it's been statistically proven that uneducated children have more unwanted pregnancies. And so what do? There's a couple options. Either you get ostracized and forever kicked out of your family, or you do the worst thing you can possibly think of, and you'll never forget it for the rest of your life, is you essentially kill a small baby. This is an option to at least both of these lives can continue and not be destroyed. The parents and the ultra-conservatives can't destroy whatever woman or young girl is having a child out of whatever reason. She cannot have that child, or maybe she just can't take care of it financially. But they won't have to go to that extent to do something so horrible as to just leave a baby in the element. And they can also give the child even more of a case, because we've talked about this in our past shows, is that the adoption programs in the United States and in Michigan and everything, they're decent. They're not perfect. They do a pretty good job. A lot of kids are lost, but it's still, better than just leaving them in the open. So this is such a cool thing that I would think that liberals and conservatives could kind of get along together and be like, listen, this is awesome. We should talk about something like this.
Yeah. And for me, the big thing here, right, is, you're right. I am aggressively pro-choice. So, I really genuinely don't have much tolerance for pro-life people. But I feel that this law allows for that compromise. I think it allows for me to be able to say, hey, if you choose to keep it, here's a better option than abandoning it. Because that's horrible. We should never. It's kind of funny. I lost my dog of 14 years 2-3 weeks ago, and we had to put him down because he was very sick. And you got to think, at 14 years old, how old is a dog at that point? He's got to be almost over 100, right, in human years. And so it was heartbreaking, but recently last weekend, a dog got brought back to my house that was abandoned by the owners. And we tried to attempt to contact them. They refused to answer us. And here we are with, it's not a puppy, but it's a very, very young dog that we're now going to, look to adopt. We're going to take it to the vet. We're going to get it looked at, see what's going on, and try and help this dog out, period. And
it's
this
the right thing to do.
Allows for that to happen without people being persecuted. And the best part about it is because it's anonymous. Yes, because even if you have to worry about, being an undocumented alien here in the United States, you don't have to worry about somebody turning you in for this. So we're taking the stigma away. And I think we should do as best we can. And I think we should take this law and put it into effect for a lot of other things, such as, and it's kind of funny when, I don't know, this was like 3 or 4 years ago, I met an individual who worked with, now he worked with churches, and it was a religious thing, but they worked with local police officers and different police departments to allow for gangs to turn guns in, like unregistered guns. You can come in, you didn't get your picture taken, you weren't allowed to have cell phones, nobody took your information, you could donate whatever you wanted to get rid of without repercussion. And that's that's amazing because, for me, I want stricter gun control laws aggressively, and I want, stricter laws for using, unregistered weapons and all these different things. But this program
next week,
preview for next week. But this program allows for people to do that. All I'm seeing is a humanistic approach to saying, hey, there's two sides of the coin. How can we allow both sides to have their say, their choice, without taking people and imprisoning them? Because the last thing I want to do is imprison a mother who made a mistake because of poor education. And even a father. I don't want to imprison somebody who made a poor mistake. I'd rather them either have the abortion early on, and if they can't deal with it, fine, let's provide a safe, legal, and anonymous method for them to be able to continue their lives.
Definitely. All 50 states have some version of this law, too. That's the really cool thing. I was like, oh, sweet, Michigan, we're leading up. Nope. Everyone's already got one. They've got some kind of law.
Come on, Michigan never leads the pack, my friend. Look, we have Rick Snyder in office, for Christ's sake.
I was hoping for some cool little thing, and then obviously reading through the MLive link that we have included in the description, people can read along and see. They say that, but despite these educational efforts, the Department of Health and Human Services report situations remain where parents abandon babies in unsafe locations. So they haven't been told, they don't know about this, and so just in June this year, a baby was found parked inside a parked vehicle outside of Mercy Health St. Mary's Hospital, right downtown Grand Rapids, where we are. So this is still something that happens, and this is if you know anyone who's in this situation or something, or you think this would be a good thing to share on your wall or on Facebook or something, just to kind of put it out there. We'll probably throw a link or two on our Facebook wall just to have something out here. They're in the holiday season. There's a lot of people on the internet, and they may have some time off or something, but I don't know. This is a feel good story that they've helped a lot of little kids that could potentially have died. After to no fault of their own, their parents make a bad decision or something. So I'm real happy with everything that I learned out here, and if it's a good place for the middle ground for people to blend in, then we can compromise somewhere instead of fighting so much in American politics these days. Yeah, and then also if people want to see this there's a high school public service announcement commercial. And Chris and I were watching the other day. Well, I don't think we'll play it because it's kind of benign. It's kind of plain and boring, but it was goofy.
Yeah, we will spare you the horror of having to hear it. We have something better to play for you in a few minutes. We're not going to play you the horror. We'll play you something that's at least a little bit more funny even if we get flagged on YouTube. But, you're right. It was a bad PSA. But, in all fairness, though, people are attempting to take this and say, hey, how can we make this more popular? How can we bring this to light? And it's kind of funny because a lot of people would say, hey, it's only 200. It's only 200 lives that we saved. Who cares? In 12 years, who cares? I care. I care. As a humanist, I kind of sit there and say, well, why would you shun that? I guess if I had to spend $10 million to save 200 people, maybe we could have a conversation about it. This hasn't cost any of us as taxpayers any money. This has not caused that. And it's allowed for people who feel constricted, who have been given a shittier lot in life, to actually do something that maybe allows for their morals without having to compromise their morals, without having to, deal with worrying about getting arrested. And I think that's amazing. I don't know. I sometimes I think our society just wants to punish more than we want to help people. And that's, in this case, if we actually look at, the fact that people are uneducated about things, we have really horrible sex education in our public schools. We have very many underfunded. Now I sound like Trump again. We have a lot of underfunded school systems where the money's going to richer districts. We have gerrymandering that's continuing to allow for this to happen. And yet we now have a program that has saved over 200 lives. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, it's awesome. One more thing, in the link section, you'll see a Michigan.gov link in here, and it'll have a safe delivery program fact sheet. It's an information at the very bottom of the page that shows you exactly what information you specifically need. And there's a toll-free number, 1-866-733-7733. So anybody checks this out, you can get some information. If you know anybody that, you say something suspicious or whatever, it doesn't hurt to try and spread this information out, because, if Cellar Door Skeptics, even without any kind of notification of us being involved, could potentially save a little kid's life at some point because of just this, this short little segment, that would be, the greatest thing I could consider this show really contributing to society, is just saving a life. So we'll hope for that. And I mean, I'm happy with this story. It's a really cool NPR interview too, so I recommend everybody listen to that as well.
Oh yes, I agree. I love the whole NPR thing. I want to everybody to go read that article, because I think coming to a crossroads helps us as a country, and without being able to do that, all we are is left in the dark. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to listen to a funny Thanksgiving song, and we're going to talk about it, because we got to have some humor tonight. Because fuck Trump and fuck Roy Moore and fuck Al Franken. So we'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hey, this is Keith.
And this is Jen, and we're from Not Another Atheist Podcast.
You're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Join the revolution.
Hi, my name's Callie.
And I'm Ari.
If you're like most of us, you're very concerned about the gay agenda's plans for world domination.
Are you tired of seeing glitter all over every damn thing?
Do you hate rainbows as much as any other red-blooded American?
Then we have the answer for all your baseless fears and unjustified paranoia.
Presented exclusively on Secular Media Network, the Gaytheist Manifesto is your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement.
You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, and at gaytheistmanifesto.secularmediagroup.com.
If you're not ready to get in line for your mandatory gay marriage, and you're terrified of short-haired women in pantsuits, come have a listen and get up to date on their plans. You'll be glad you did.
Considering how you want to help Cellar Door Skeptics, head over to iTunes or your favorite podcast app and give us a rating, because every rating helps push us in front of new listeners. And since our main goal here at Cellar Door Skeptics is to provide the most accurate information possible, we hope that more ratings will mean that more people get to hear the topics that we're presenting. We don't insist that we get a 5-star rating, but Hannah's favorite number is 5, and the more gold stars he gets, the more special he's gonna feel. So what do you say? Head on over to iTunes or Google Play, give us a rating, and help engage with Cellar Door Skeptics today.
Hey, my name is Jeremiah. And this is David from the God Theory Podcast. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
And now, back to Cellar Door Skeptics with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. The show with the sources.
Oh, welcome back. The funny thing here is that we're the show with the sources. And we are. We have tons of sources for you. But next, we have to look at vegan Thanksgiving. And I say this because we got to bring a little bit of humor to the show. We got to be able to, kind of reach out of our boundaries. And neither one of us are vegans or vegetarians. But I'll be honest, I've kind of leaned a little closer to vegetarian lately than I have in the past. I already had reduced my meat content, but now we're trying different vegetarian options.
I shot a deer last week, so it's about as non-vegetarian as it gets right there.
Yeah. And so that's just kind of, the thing. How do we go about continuing that, right? I don't know. I just I like deer too, but somebody wants to figure out how I can be a vegetarian as best I can.
We could do some vegetarian ethics or something again in the future. I don't know. That was a fun show, man. Getting into the politics of philosophy of food.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Hannah. I like that segment. I think we should probably address that again in the next couple of months. But, to begin with, I thought it would be awesome, since we're talking about Thanksgiving, to talk about a vegan Thanksgiving. Because there's those out there who do have to have a vegan Thanksgiving. So I thought this song was amazing. It's a song by Gray called Vegan Thanksgiving. And we're going to listen to it right here on the show.
A vegan Thanksgiving at our house. About to bring everything but the hog out. Think we eat nothing but grass. What you talking about? Shit, I'm about to jump into the whip and hit the Whole Foods early. Get everything to get that soul food working. Like mac and cheese, the collard greens, the black eyed peas, and get a roast of that tofu turkey. Got cornbread, even got stuffing. Mashed potatoes so good, put your hand in it. String beans, and we got yams with it. Got cabbage and greens with no ham in it. You can fill your plate up without all the
the best part right there is that he just said they got cabbage and greens without ham in it. And I'll be honest, for me, if I want collard greens, I don't want meat in my collard greens. I don't know why people like meat in their collard greens. I used to like bacon in my collard greens, but I honestly did not like ham and after a while now, it's kind of I don't want my collard greens to have meat in it. I'd rather it just be fucking collard greens, Well,
that's one of the things you learn over time is your food's simple.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you make collard greens, Hannah?
I've made them before. It's not something I go to regularly, but my Thanksgiving doesn't have this many people in the house either. So I may need to just.
There's so many people in this damn house, and everybody's kind of thumping to the music, and that's kind of what the funny part of this video is because we all know that this doesn't happen, but they're all all living it up because they're having a vegan Thanksgiving.
This is like a college Thanksgiving. That's what I could see college Thanksgiving looking like.
Almond milk. Everything that you touch gonna be dairy free. Even though I don't care for me. Boy, please, I got
Everybody bow your head. Hold your neighbor's hand.
And this is the best part about this whole thing because all of a sudden they get into this whole, hey, here we are. We're going to bow our heads and pray. And just wait. Just wait. And if you can watch the video, it's even better than just listening to the audio. But just wait till what happens halfway through the prayer.
All right. Thank you, God, for this food that we have here today. Also, Lord, thank you, man. My baby mama finally took me off child support. I ain't really love her, so I had to be with her for her to take me off. So thank you. That's a good look.
Hold on, bro. Did you just touch the food, bro?
When?
Oh!
He just touched the food, and they're like, oh, man. That's the best part about the whole thing. He used the prayer to eat the fucking food while they were praying. And I'm not going to lie and say that I've never done that at my parents' house where everybody's like, oh, we're bowing our heads. It's I'm gonna take a couple extra green beans right here. You know, like no, nobody's looking. I'm gonna take those green beans.
I usually can wait a little bit because I'm still eating by the time everyone else is done.
Fair enough.
Beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, lamb, beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, rat.
The best part right there is he goes, I ain't fucking, and then it changes like the vocals. Like the guy's like inserting himself. And it's like, the first time I heard this, like I was like, okay, what the hell did he just say? And then they're like, I ain't fucking with it. And then all of a sudden it comes in and they're like they're talking about, you know, meat. And like, cause at first I was like, I thought this was a vegan video. Like, why are they talking about meat? But then I realized, you know, that little overlay where he's like, I ain't fucking with it. And then all of a sudden it talks about the meat that they're not fucking with. I found that comical personally. Maybe I'm just crazy, but
I just usually can't catch it too fast. This is the first time I've listened. I don't know about the chorus, man. It's weird that they're yelling about beans.
No, I gotta get seconds, man.
That's true. They're yelling.
Let's go.
Because they're not fucking with some of that stuff, you know?
So good, got me back in the kitchen.
That's fun.
I bought a mac and cheese. Low key, got the situation lit. Bro, you say the same cheese, nigga. Tell me how you did it. How the hell you getting milk? Got a coconut and cashews. Barbecue sliders out of jackfruit. And it tastes so good.
Okay, I gotta stop again right there. They just said barbecue sliders. Like, I know they're not eating meat. They have vegan barbecue sliders. Like, I it's kind of funny because like I just messaged an hour ago before our show. I messaged my friend who we had on the show, you know, a year ago, and I asked her, I was like, how do you do barbecue vegan sliders? I need to know this because I think this is going to be something I have to try. Like, I just need to try this because that's insanity. Because what is barbecue to you, to me? You know, like, I mean, when I think of barbecue, I think of, you know, fucking pork, for Christ's sake. You know, that's what I think of. If you can do a vegan barbecue, and then if you can figure out how to do a vegan barbecue and smoke it, you kind of solve my problem right here, you know?
You can smoke just about any kind of vegetable or anything like that, just whether or not it survives the process to catch all the flavor and stuff.
Yeah, or whether it tastes good.
The flavors wouldn't surprise me. It's all the textures and the little bits that you get from the maillard reaction and pork and stuff. I mean, and the grease, you're not going to get that.
That's true. You won't get that.
Got a grab too. And desserts, they about to get smashed too. Got vanilla cookies, eat them like it's nothing. Got the lemon and the blueberry muffin. I got sweet potato, apple pie, and pumpkin. Taste buds and bean pies are jumping. Got cupcakes, raspberry icing. Top it off with coffee and some light cream. Or the vegan cookie dough vanilla ice cream. Need a plate for your leash? Tell me what you need. I got
beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, lamb, beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, rat. Beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes.
I guess stop it a second again. I know there's only 30 seconds left, but they say I'm not fucking with lamb. Like, I've never had lamb on Thanksgiving. That sounds good though. It sounds good though. We're listening to a vegan video, but
it's a substitute.
I like lamb though.
My family does lamb for Christmas.
Can you make sure that my family gets an invite to that?
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's my grandmother who runs it all. So like we
we'll
go to
just
my
tell your
grandpa's
grandpa
house.
we share some whiskey that one night. I'm pretty sure your grandpa would be like, all right, you know, just don't talk atheist shit and you can come over.
It shows up every once in a while. He grabbed my daughter's toes and was like, "You can't believe that can't by chance." And I was like, "Grandpa, how much time you got, Grandpa?" It happens from time to time.
Beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes, beans, creams, beans.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, if I'm sorry, folks. If you don't find that funny, I'm sorry.
Beans,
tomatoes, gravy, beans, tomato. I don't know. I found it funny. I'm sorry. I really genuinely did. I thought that was a good addition, right? You know, we talk about diversifying the show, like, and you know, it's kind of funny because I'm not a vegetarian nor am I vegan, you know, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I advocate for all these different things, but I'll be honest. Like,
open to it.
These people, what they were doing in the house, all the food they had on the table, it looked pretty fucking appetizing.
We do vegetarian meals here. I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh man, I miss protein so bad. I'm getting a full on meal. I'm not like emaciated or whatever. But we do meals that don't have any animal proteins in them. It happens. That's not that big of a deal. Doing it, for months on end would be tough, but
yeah, I don't know. So
and maybe you need a theme song like that to help you get through it.
maybe we do. And maybe if more people had that theme song, they would be part of the, whole vegan thing. And it's kind of funny that the lady that we had on the show, right? A couple of years before I even had her on the show, she was over at her house for a New Year's Eve thing. And she brought some vegan food. And I'll be honest, my first initial reaction is saying, that's not for me. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't need that. Why would I do that? But she had these brownies. And if they had pot in them, they would be even better. But she had these brownies and like you couldn't tell they were black bean brownies. You would have no clue that they were, vegan, vegetarian. You would literally have zero clue.
It's pretty cool.
And they were amazing. And, that's all I'm saying is that, there's got to be some sort of a happy medium,
We're all about happy mediums today. This must be a holiday episode. We're talking happy mediums.
It is. I don't have to work tomorrow. I've got the day off. I've got like 6 days off after that. So, I know you don't because you work for a crappy company. But, the company I work for gives us a whole bunch of paid time off. So, anyway, so
that one.
Yeah, I know. So I thought, for the rest of this segment, we would talk a little bit about this new fabric. So there's this scientific article on sci.org, and it kind of talks about, what can we do with our fabric? What can we do? Where are we at? What can we do? How are we going to be able to change the future? And this is it's a very light science segment, but I thought I had to throw a little bit of this in there because I found this article interesting because think about it. If you were able to wear electronics and wash them, then can you think about the kids that leave their iPads, or I guess not iPads, but iPods and their iPhones in their pants and their parents wash them because they're like, yeah, why should I check your pants? So, you should be a lot better than this and stop throwing. Why am I doing your laundry at 15? But, we all do that. At least I do that. I still do my kids' laundry at 15. I don't want them to fuck my $1,000 washing machine up,
Yeah.
But, I don't want to have to go through the pants. Why should I have to go through your pants? It's like, you go through your own pants. Oh, you left your iPhone in your pants? Well, I guess you don't got an iPhone anymore. Sorry. And, so the technology that we're about to talk about kind of struck me as, holy crap. Now we're going to have smart textiles. Like, we're going to have wearable electronics. That's kind of amazing to me. That's just, to me, that feels a little bit revolutionary. Not to the point where we're helping minorities, but, we're at least moving people forward out of their old antiquated systems where I have to wear this cloth fabric or I have to wear this specific polyester fabric because that's how I've worn it for 25 or 50 years. At least we're moving forward with this.
Well, you don't do the cotton blends or whatever because the Lord said you shall die.
That's right. The cotton blends. Yeah, God says you will die with a cotton blend. Man, I forgot about that.
Either way, this stuff here. So this entire story, it basically broke around the internet a week or so ago, and the whole concept is basically a proof of concept using something called graphene, which is really popular. It's 2-dimensional graphite that's basically blended.
We graphed when we were kids, though, didn't we? Didn't you graph it? You didn't have to have graph paper as a kid?
No, graphene, man.
It's not the same as graph paper and drawing out like hexagons and pentagrams. My favorite was the pentagram.
I would think it would be, but no, this is a relatively new discovery. What they've done is they've figured out how to get carbon atoms to lay in a single layer. So it really is 2-dimensional. There is no vertical lattice. It's just carbon atoms all connected in a flat plane. But it conducts electricity really well. So they've been trying to use this material to make like batteries, all kinds of new technology for the future, super fast conductors. It's got all kinds of possibilities. But what it has in this case here is essentially it's turning your clothing and fabrics into little circuits. So instead of using a silicon base to run, gold or foil or silver, aluminum or copper, they're using fabrics and using this graphene. Well, they haven't thought of any cool things to do with this yet. So it isn't you can wear a shirt and it lights up and plays a TV on front or anything. This is the scientific paper that is basically proving the concept. So it says that these things are flexible and washable, require low power. It's like we're talking LED But the idea is that it opens up commercial opportunities for, different kinds of things, from personal health, well-being, energy harvesting. So like solar clothing, you can basically charge your phone in your pocket just because your clothing has, let's say, what is it, fluoroluminescent, something along those lines, whatever it is. And basically you could charge things, or you could, whatever for those kinds, that kind of equipment. And then military garments as well would be the same thing. There's some kind of tactical advantages to be able to connect your helmet to your vest for communication purposes and visual LEDs. You've been shot, it can give you a warning that your jacket's been torn, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff that could be happening, and this is the proof of that scientific concept.
Yeah, what drew me to it was not the weird fetishes, right? Like we're going to be able to wear our commercials. Like I'll be like, hey, I can advertise this. Like it's not Futurama. It's not like we're going to be able to go, hey, look, I'm an advertisement walking, pay me money. To me, yeah, like it's the military thing, right? Can you tell you've been shot? Are you able to use all these as an extra antenna? Can your clothing be a fucking antenna, for Christ's sake? That could help you. And the best part about this is they talk about how it's environmentally friendly inks. So we're not even talking something that's poisoning our environment. We're now able to move past the fact that we're poisoning the environment and having something a little bit more economical as well as environmental. That's insanity to me. Like that's us saying, hey, Republicans, climate change is real. And this is the future.
Climate change is real, and you can plug your T-shirt in at night.
Exactly. Yeah. It's its own nightlight. I don't know. It's kind of funny because they talk about they basically say this. They say other inks for printed electronics normally require toxic solvents and are not suitable to be worn, whereas our inks are both cheap, safe, and environmentally friendly, and can be combined to create electronic circuits by printing different two-dimensional materials. That's insanity. That's just like, to me, that's just saying, how can we buck the system even more? Like, to me, this is a mini revolution, right? Because I'm not saying this is going to turn into this big thing, or it's going to become this revolutionary idea that replaces things. And in fairness, the study shows that it only goes through 20 cycles. You can only have this for, you can only wear this 20 weeks. So if you wear it once a week, you can only have it for 20 weeks, and it's going to die out.
Well,
but this is the beginning of
only
this.
survive being cleaned. So like,
all right, so you could wear it more.
Yeah, if you never wash your jeans like I don't, then you can probably wear them. I guess the biggest thing for me on this one is, I don't know if you got all the way down towards the bottom there, but they basically talk about the people that were in charge of this research. And this is kind of a way to bring it back to American politics right now, is this research was supported by grants from the Graphene Flagship, the European Research Council Synergy Grant, the Engineering and Physical Science Research Council, the Newton Trust International Research Fellowship of the National Natural Science Foundation of China, and the Ministry of Science and Technology of China. I mean, the technology is being commercialized by the Cambridge Enterprise. That's the CAM site, that the first link that we have in here, and it's the university's commercial arm. But all those research foundations, all those grants, that is the world's scientific community working together. The idea of nationalism, us only, us first, you're basically backing away from the globalized community. What you're losing is the ability to work with companies and groups and scientists and universities really, really closely, because it's easy when everybody kind of shares everything in the global community. When you back away from things like that, one of the things they're worried about in the European Union when Britain leaves is all the scientists that are now not going to be able to get grants and do things across the borders so easily. It's going to hurt. The U.S. backing away from stuff like this, we would fall behind. We may not have access to this kind of tech. Like, this is the coolest stuff, and this is the kind of stuff like you talked about, we're innovating and doing something new. This is what happens when the world works together and humanity stops fighting about, which piece of little piece of dirt the first human was ever on because of your mythology. That is completely irrelevant to solving the problems at hand and saving lives and creating a better life for everybody today. And so, I mean, this is a great example of that. This is the world working together. More power to them.
Yeah. We thought that would be a good segment, for a Thanksgiving episode. We really did. And
thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to take a quick commercial break again, and we're going to come back with our last segment, How to Survive Thanksgiving. And, normally we wouldn't do this, but again, it's a lighthearted episode. We wanted to kind of look at how do we survive talking politics with our family, because probably if you're listening to this show, you're probably not ultra-conservative, and you probably have ultra-conservative relatives. And then we're also going to kind of look at it from a religious angle. How do we handle that going forward? We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
This is Matthew the Apostle from In the Name of God, the podcast. And you are listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, this is Trav Mamone, host of the By Any Means podcast. Join me every week as I interview bloggers, podcasters, writers, and activists about the intersections of atheism, humanism, racial justice, feminism, LGBTQ rights, and other social issues. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher, and you can read my blog at freethoughtblogs.com/byanymeans. And remember, that's bi spelled B-I. Come take a listen to the musings of a queer humanist, because, hey, aren't we all a little bi-curious?
Looking for something new and exciting, or maybe just a change from the old atheist show format? Cellar Door Skeptics podcast provides listeners with hours of enjoyment each week on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out as we talk politics, religion, science, reviews of books and music, along with the occasional interview just for a twist. Join Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as they bring fresh content to you. Walk with us through the Cellar Door as we help you prepare for the revolution. You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and even on Facebook.
This is Trav Mamone, host of the By Any Means podcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. We have cookies.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for sticking around through this very light-hearted, amazing episode.
Bit sweary. Couple extra.
a little bit on the explicit tag here. But it's been a fun episode. We kind of went back to the old format this week because of Hannah's busyness and my busyness and the holiday week. And, we apologize for releasing the episode 2 days later than expected. But, again, with everything going on with families, we had to cram 5 days of work into 2 days this week. For me, 3 days for you. But I had to cram 5 days of work into 2 days this week.
Well, everybody's got the days off coming in the next couple of days too, so they got time to consume. They can suck our podcast down with a nice glass of scotch and call it a decent time. So
yeah. So the last part of the show we wanted to talk about was politics at the dinner table, right? And we'll kind of get a little bit into religion at the dinner table too. But I thought it was kind of, it was kind of going to be a good discussion because your family's a little bit different than my family, Hannah. In your world, the religion thing's not a touchy discussion point, really.
Not
for the
really.
Most part. The politics maybe a little bit more.
No, I bet you your politics is even rougher than mine too. My family really they're really smart and we have big nasty conversations that it's hard to keep them corralled because they know a bunch about a bunch of different topics, and so how sometimes topics and conversations wander off into space. But we don't fight about it. It's just you got to do your homework before you come into a conversation or something. So it's I listen to NPR and prep all week, so that I'm ready for the conservative arguments against
whatever's going on at the time. Yeah, I don't have to prep as much usually because there's very few times anybody in my family has done the research for it. When we had more extended family that would show up, sometimes it get a little bit harder. We used to go over to my mom's younger brother's house, and he was a little bit more up to date on some of the stuff than the rest of them were. And then his older brother, my mom's older brother,
he has an InfoWars membership.
So yeah, I don't know if it was an InfoWars. I mean, it wasn't, I don't know if it was, I would say it's as crazy as that, but it was definitely a Fox News, vibe. And so, politics at the dinner table was not always a fun experience, in our world.
You did it at the actual table. Like we did it around the table. Once it was time to eat, like it was pretty, like let's just eat and talk about family stuff. But like on the couches or in the house, we talk.
It depends, because if it started at the couches, it would progress to the table. But if it sometimes it wouldn't start till about halfway through the dinner. Like one time we were having this conversation where we were, it just kind of churned to, who's going to say grace, and then. All of a sudden somebody said something about, well, it's kind of nice we have some of this extra food. And then somebody said, well, we could donate some of this to the poor. And then they're like, well, why would we give anything to the poor? They need to pull themselves up, yada, 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 bootstrap argument. And then, it's just kind of, here's so Chris bad. Sitting here going, I don't know. So we found a couple of articles. This year, I think it's not going to be as touchy as last year. Last year, we had to deal with the orange Cheeto monster. Now we've had a full year of orange Cheeto monster almost. And we will do a recap, actually. That's probably something you and I need to talk about doing here in the next month. Did he even hit his 100 days? Did he hit any of his promises? What has he accomplished? Other, than supposedly the net neutrality disappearing here. There's not been much. And, so this year, I don't think the family will be as advantageous to talk about Trump, because there's just not as much to talk about. The hope isn't there anymore. Now you're into the nitty gritty. And if there's no substance there, why would they bring it up,
Yeah, I guess taxes, death and taxes, that'll bring in some of the religion stuff. And then taxes are a pretty hot topic thing for what everybody wants to do. But those are the real big hitting ones right now, besides all this sex scandal stuff. So, I mean, that one could probably come in there, having to defend women. I had to do it earlier today. My grandfather and my dad were talking about, someone coming up with an accusation 40 years ago. And I was like, well, what was the culture like 40 years ago? I had to bring out those conversations and those points and stuff. So I'm assuming that stuff's going to continue into this for everything. So, what did the first article that you had? I think it was this one from the Atlantic. Is that the one we want to start with? Because they had a nice list of stuff.
Yep. The first one from the Atlantic is the one from last year. And the reason I picked it is because, last year was a troubling year. So anything that applied last year can be applied this year. No questions asked. The first thing they say is simply fill pie holes when you can tell someone you love to shut theirs. So instead of, creating an MMA match or creating a aggressive debate, take a bite of food. Stop what you're saying for a second. Let it simmer. And then you can kind of go back into it. What's that?
That's such a first world solution. Just eat something.
Yeah. Well, in other countries, they probably don't argue politics because they're too hungry to eat.
Yeah, that could be it too. They're too thirsty, or they've got some form of the flu because of all the medication problems and water and dirty stuff. Anyways, back to the first world problems that we have here.
Yeah.
So we're fighting. We're fighting. We got a mouthful of food. Where do we go there?
Yeah, they said sometimes, despite all your best efforts and preparation, certain things, as we are so powerfully reminded, can always go horribly wrong. If the worst befalls the Thanksgiving table, it's always good to have a handful of non-political related topics at your disposal as well. Such as they gave Game of Thrones, though, I guess at my house it's not contentious because my wife and I are the only ones that watch that show, but maybe at your house, well, I don't know, you guys don't watch TV in your guys' life, but you have a bunch of different things that you could talk about, again, such as like Game of Thrones. You could talk about how The Walking Dead has gone into the gutter. You could talk about how The Big Bang Theory is now the highest paid actors per episode. I mean, there's 100 million other things. For example, there's a new Star Wars movie coming out this year. So this year, that's going to be a topic at our table because, I took the day off of work for the Thanksgiving, for the release this year. And I'm sure I'm going to get asked, hey, is any of the kids coming? Can you take all the kids? Essentially, my dad will be like, oh, you want to take all the kids? Because my dad hates movies. He'd be like, hey, you want to take your son and your stepson and all these other things? Be like, yep, I'll do that, Dad, sure. But they talk about
That's
having,
cool.
alternate discussions so that you have something to talk about without worrying about whether, that specific political discussion could upset people.
Yeah, the big thing we've got going on in the family right now is all the little kids. So my sister's got a 2-year-old that's 3 months older than my 2-year-old. And so like all the new things they're learning and discovering and talking about because they're both putting together sentences and stuff. And all of the wild things that's going on because this is my parents' first grandkids. And then my wife's obviously pregnant right now again. So there's all this family and baby talk and those kinds of things that keep everybody kind of busy. We could talk about education and learning and all this, I guess, wisdom that they wish to impart down upon, the new young parents. And so it usually keeps some of the more contentious stuff at bay, just having the little kids around. Because, it's kind of hard to talk politics when you got a little kid trying to shove a Lego up her nose or something, or whatever. So
a pea. Back when I was a kid, there was a pea. You shoved a pea up your nose.
What were your parents giving you food? Well, we had plastic toys and stuff. They just wanted to make sure we wouldn't eat them. But I don't remember that specifically.
Yeah, we ours was the pea, and I say that they told us it was a common thing, but it was actually a gimmick my mother's older brother used to do. He would put peas in his nose and shoot them out at the wall during holidays. I don't know why, but one year he got one stuck up there, and then one year one of my cousins got one stuck up there, and actually had to go to the emergency room, and it was just a big ordeal. Another thing they talk about, is actually listening, right? Listening, empathizing. It's not about the winning. It's about listening and understanding. And I'll be honest, it's actually, something that I've tried to take to heart because I can admit I'm probably not the best listener. And if you can ask my wife, and she probably would tell you that I probably only listen half the time. But what I've done is instead of jumping and giving them the answer, I allow them to make their statement. And then I kind of use more of a Socratic method and ask a few questions. And then I kind of dive into it because I just can't help myself at that point.
Let them dig their own grave for a little while.
And my wife's actually a lot better at that than I am. Like my wife masters some of those abilities. Like she is
passive aggressive.
Yeah, she's passive aggressive. Yeah, but she has the way to listen like I don't have. And it's kind of funny because she grew up pretty liberal. I won't say she was like a middle of the road, progressive growing up. I mean, her family's pretty liberal, but the funny thing is that she's able to listen, to process it, and then to challenge people. And then, people don't expect that out of her. They kind of, in my family, there's always been a sexist overtone. It's always been, the men do this, the men do that. And, since I've came out as an atheist and a progressive, I've challenged them on that. Well, she doesn't specifically go out of her way to challenge them on those specific topics, but what'll happen is when she opens her mouth and says certain things, and then she can actually banter with my father back and forth, and he doesn't know what to do because he's not used to being challenged by a woman. And I know that's awful to say. That is a really horrible thing to say, but it's true. It's always been an atmosphere. And so over the last 10 years, the rest of the women in my family now actually speak up. For example, they won't all tell my father that they voted for Hillary. Or I'm guessing some of them voted for Gary. I'm not 100% sure. But
I would say that's probably a more logical step for your family.
Yes and no. Hillary's a neocon. I'm sorry. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, if in comparison. But if we're going with political labels, the libertarian is closer to the, the don't tread on me is closer to the Republican than, I guess, than a conservative right Clinton.
Yeah, it is. And I do know 2 people in my immediate family voted for Clinton for a fact. That's but cool. They won't tell my dad that, but they will challenge him on other things during the conversations now where they never used to before because they've seen my wife open up and challenge, and now all of a sudden they are.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Another thing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say my family, like when we typically have the conversations or whatever, like the listening thing is something I do have a difficulty with. It's just like I love to just get in there and short, quick bursts. And so letting someone have a long, drawn out one with the conversation is usually kind of difficult. What I think I like to do, though, is I've been trying to make myself listen to someone's point all the way through and then obviously try to not pick out the specifics. We've talked about this a few times here and there. So with these these topics that we disagree on, like they say that the road to civilization, a failure of civilization, is paved with good intentions, and that's essentially what everyone has. Is they have good intentions with their arguments. Like most cases, they want people to have a good paycheck. They want people to be comfortable and have healthy and comfortable lives. But the way they want to get there is different. So we argue about the specifics. But if you can kind of find that middle ground, that everyone does kind of want everybody to have a decent health care plan, a decent paycheck, a nice house and a decent car, some room for your kids or whatever. And then we can go about, build onto that more complicated. So like stay simple. And my family, we kind of try to do that. So like it gets philosophical more than it does like battling about which person or which candidate or whatever.
Yeah. Another article that we have from NBC News, their number one thing just says don't talk about politics, right? They just say don't do it. And it's kind of funny, I had a conversation a couple of months ago with a relative, and I was talking about I've not been looking for another job, but I've been open to opportunities for raises and for improvements. And there's a position I may take that I'm going to be interviewing for and stuff like that would make a substantial amount of money more than what I make currently now. And I was talking to this relative about it, and I said, well, hey, this industry better than I do. What do you feel that position's worth? And they literally quoted to me the amount I make now, and it's kind of like, okay, well, you have this type of position in your company. You don't know how much that really makes. Well, no. And it's like, okay, well, there's different tiers. Okay, so fine. Maybe you don't know. That's okay. I said, I feel that this position should make this amount. And the person came back and the relative was like, absolutely not. And they're like, we make, they're like, I make between this and this, which is not just substantially more than I make. It's twice that, and so you just want to sit there and go, you really see that this position is less than your position.
Less than half of it?
Yeah, and so then what you do is I sit down and I look at that, and it's just their politics that are talking, because they're ultra conservative. They believe in pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but don't take from mine. And if all of a sudden another rival in the family comes up, that type of politics comes out. And so I can see why maybe it's not good to talk politics, because I'm the other person that says, hey, pay me as much as you can, but I'll tell you what, I'll take a lower paycheck if I can get a lot more people to make closer to what I make. I'm okay with that. I want people to be comfortable, but it's probably not a good topic for conversation at a table.
Yeah, it brings out the inner socialist in you, that's for sure. And I'm sure that's probably going to pull out some big fires. It's like, you know what? I'm more comfortable with everybody distributing the wealth nicely. And then like a bunch of red flags go up in your family. Ping, ping, ping. So,
yeah. Another one they say is there's certain things that you should allow. So for, this year, their example was let the conversation about sexual harassment happen. So politics, yeah, it's big. I mean, we have the orange Cheeto monster in the fucking office, but they said, hey, look at it this way. What's the hot topic? So the Me Too story, that's a huge thing. We've talked about that several times. Domestic violence is a big thing that's going on right now and being exposed. And so they say, let the people either share their stories, or when they make negative conversation or a negative statement, kind of like what happened to you today, bring up some of those other stories to say, hey, how can you trivialize that? And they say, bring it back home. Because if you think about it, right, if you can bring that back home and say, well, if that was your daughter and that happened to her, even if it was 40 years ago, would you not be upset by that? Would that not be something that bothers you still to this day? Another thing they said is to create what's called a political zone, which must be kind of relatively what you guys do in your family that we don't have in my family. I mean, now, in all fairness, most people are too busy shoveling food in their mouth and talking about whether they like something or not at the beginning of the conversation or the meal. But about halfway through to the end, once all the kids start to leave.
Yeah, that's typically what it is. Like if someone lingers at the table, then we have a couple conversations that might get a little more, provincial. But in most cases, it's pretty light at the table when the food's still hot.
Yeah. Another one is to establish, the ground rules, right? Talk whether you want to have a conversation about politics. They used an example like last year, hey, say we're not going to be talking about the election. That's just not going to happen. And I'll be honest, that kind of comes up sometimes in my family. I'll just say, nope, that topic's or that the conversation's off topic because you and I are not going to agree, and we're better off not having that conversation. Now, most of my relatives aren't ballsy enough to say that. I am, though. I'm just that guy that says, this is not going to go good. Can we just stop talking about this right now?
Rule number 2, we do not talk about Fight Club.
They also talk about having a wingman. For me, it's, my wife, though my stepson is coming out of his shell and actually challenging a little bit more. Unless there's video games going on in the other room, my stepson, whether he knows it or not, shares some of our political views. And in all fairness, today I caught him, saying and doing something that I 100% disagree with. And I called him out on it and he hated it. He's like, well, I was just kidding. And I was like, well, that's not fucking funny to kid about that. So you could have just been kidding. And he didn't like that. He doesn't like the call out nature, of the SJW. He thinks that's kind of stupid, but he does take some of the same political positions I do in almost the same socialistic extent that I do. He's a little bit more libertarian.
Yeah.
But, he takes that. He takes those steps that says, hey, it's not fair that, when I go to school, there's all of us kids and my father works 60 hours a week, but this kid's father works 40 hours a week and they drive Bentleys and Lexuses and we drive cars that are over 10 years old,
Yeah, one of the fun things I don't have a wingman per se when it comes to a lot of my politics of the family. My wife just doesn't get into those conversations. But the one thing that I've been getting lately is all the kids in the family that are teenagers or just finishing up high school or whatever. We're all, friends on Facebook, and I get these little shadow likes and a little smiley face or something when I make something pretty gnarly out there and I post something that's got a pretty heavy meaning to it or something. And it's just like, hey, this person's giving me some clicks when they wouldn't need to. Well, I know I got a couple little, but I guess burgeoning soldiers hidden in the ranks in a few places that I might get some shadow support one of these days when we had the conversations. But planting seeds, right?
Yes, that's true. You got to plant the seeds. And it's funny because for as much trouble as I've been in, with the law back in my past and some of the issues that I've struggled with, is kind of funny because it's changed how my parents perceive things. Like my mom openly voted for marijuana to decriminalize it. She openly voted to have marijuana as medical use. And now I don't know if she tells my dad that or not, but she came and told me this. And, when I was growing up, my mom would have taken the stance where marijuana is evil. You can't have it, blah, blah, blah. It was a thing you didn't do.
So what changed it?
I think, some of it was me, right? Me getting in trouble. And some of it was discussions I've had. I did go through when I worked with Decriminalize, that topic came up where it's like, well, no, this is good because of this. I'm glad this passed because it's now taking $2 million a year out, in allowing it to be used in the budget somewhere else. And we're not marginalizing black people in the same way. And some of it, I think, happened because when they started fostering, they started to interact with, some inner city people who've had a harder time, who are on the verge of losing their kids.
That's awesome.
And so
some real world stuff kind of helped them, broaden their horizons. That's an awesome story there.
Yeah.
I love that. That makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, you see some of that in my family. You see that progression, and it's kind of funny that my sister, who happens to be the most religious one, and I bet she'll never listen to this podcast. So if she does, I'm sure I'll hear the end of it. But I don't know, a couple of years ago, the whole evolution thing came up, and it was kind of funny because the evolution thing would come up, and she kind of asked questions, and we were at the zoo thing, and like randomly she like, I don't think it was to me, but just openly, very loudly stated, "Holy crap! I read the same thing at these other museums 2 weeks ago when me and my husband were out here." She's like, "Is this stuff? It kind of makes sense." And so here comes Chris, all excited, right up behind her, saying, "Hey, yeah, that's exactly right." Like, holy crap, this is amazing. And those are the type of things that we get to see. And we get to kind of, experience. But what that kind of does
a farmer.
Is, yeah, kind of like a farmer, yeah. And the funny thing is I was there the first time and my dad didn't really say much. And then, the next time she brought it up when they went to another museum like a month later, I wasn't there, my wife was. And he challenged it the whole way, and finally my wife's like, "All right, I'm not going to argue with you, but I don't agree with you." And that kind of goes if we want to go all the way back, right? And we talked about politics. What about religion at the table? Because in my household, in my world, that's actually a pretty big thing. Because, for example, like that stuff comes up at the dinner table actually more often than politics do, because that's how their lives are lived. They see religion in everything. They see their God and all these things, and that type of stuff actually comes up at the dinner table more often, and that's actually a lot harder to tread through.
Yeah,
for me,
my family doesn't really
is,
battle it as hard as yours does. We don't. The religion thing isn't as intense, but the other thing is, like, I don't like the religious thing in the conversations because there's no completely, like, with science, I got an answer for that. It's like there's one answer, but like with religion, man, there's so many different ways to go through it. Like all the Justin Schieber, like, logic and everything, like, man, so like that's not my strong point. Like your family, I bet you your conversations get pretty hard and you get that canopy theory going.
Yeah, canopy theory. I don't know if they actually believe that anymore. I don't know. That doesn't come up. This never come up because they've never had to try and justify the flood. My uncle, when we used to go to my uncle's house, he would challenge me when I first came out, openly. Now we just don't go over there. Like, we're not invited anymore. But he never used the canopy theory thing anymore. What he used to do is say, well, do you see how evolution fails? That's always what the conversation was. The crappy thing for me, is that I like Thanksgiving. I don't like the food as much as I thought I did. I used to really love Thanksgiving food. Now I'm kind of like, oh, don't they have like a Thai Thanksgiving, where we get to eat Thai food instead? Like, do we really need to cook a big ass turkey? And do we really need any of this? And maybe it's, part of my progression towards that vegetarian, lifestyle that I'm not saying I'm a vegetarian by any means, but I'm moving closer to a very limited meat source.
I wonder if other cultures find their natural cuisine a little bit more like, whatever, and like find like other, you know what I mean? Because like that's kind of how I feel about American foods. Like Thanksgiving is awesome; it's all great food. I eat a whole bunch of it, and I get tired, and I have to try to stay awake. But like when I think of those foods, it's just like, whatever. Potatoes, birds, cranberries, whatever. But like you said, Thai or something like that. Like it'd be crazy. But like I wonder if other countries, like Thai people, are like, oh god, Thai food again. I can't wait. You know what I mean? I wish I could have a giant steaming turkey and some sweet potatoes or something. Like that'd be so weird if someone said that. But I don't know. But anyways, one of the articles that we pulled in here, we have the thinking, or the friendly atheist this time, because the first article that we had in there was that we had talked earlier about was a guest one. Oh no, this is the guest one. That's right.
This is the guest one.
Kate Cohen, and yes. She basically has her guest thing. She talks about the different religious aspects and stuff, and the secular invocation, the replacement for a prayer, if the secular person or the non-believer gets a chance to tell if they want to participate in the prayer thing or not. Because if given the opportunity, I would love to know in advance that I'm doing this instead of making it up on the fly. And these are pretty cool. Like if you kind of sort of remember what it says, I mean, I would be cool with it. And I don't know, would if someone gave you the opportunity, would you be down with trying to do something like that, or are you gonna be like, no, I just don't want to do that at all?
And now I would be more open to that now than in the past. I'll be honest. And I have said no. Like when I first came out, somebody thought it was funny. Like, well, we could have Chris say the prayer, and I just kind of laughed and said, yeah, that's a smart idea. Let's let the atheist say a prayer. And then because I used the word atheist, everybody just got like real quiet, and then it was all awkward, and it's just like, I probably shouldn't have said that, but stop putting me on the spot for Christ's sake. You don't need to do that. Like I'm not here telling you can't have your prayer. I'm not here saying your supreme
give me the
being
goddamn
is
turkey.
Yeah, exactly. Your supreme being's stupid or ideology, whatever that drunk word is. I'm just, here saying I don't participate in this, so she kind of, put some things together, in here where, she puts she put together some different things you can say, because she says, if you look at it, some of the older founding fathers had, let's say, less than religious prayers, not all of them specifically did that. And so
they were part of the Enlightenment, which was kind of like deistic-ish. I mean, I would put like Spinozan and deistic, like the universe is a god type thing.
Yeah. And so, she kind of talks a little bit about, could it be enough to even just say, a prayer? And, we have a friend named Norm, and he actually just did a wedding last summer for another friend of ours. And from my understanding, I thought her friend, my wife's friend and our friend was an atheist. Like, I didn't think she was religious at all. And all of a sudden he gets up there and he opens the wedding off with a prayer. And I'm sitting here going, I know Norm's an atheist. Like, I've seen his Facebook. I've hung out with this guy. We've talked about it. I don't see him, but okay, hey, whatever. And they like literally did this whole prayer thing, at the wedding. And then, later on, a couple months later, something came up and somebody challenged him. And he goes, well, yeah, I don't care. He's like, I got paid to be a minister. Guess what? I just hosted a wedding where I gave an actual invocation. And he says, it wasn't for me. I got paid to do this. He said, that's what the couple wanted. They wanted a prayer for whatever reason at their wedding. And I administered it because I'm just here to serve them. And that's kind of a little bit of what her article talks about. She goes, how do you have communal words trying to express not just passing emotion, but universal truths? An atheist craves comforts of religion sometimes. And for her, and more than probably others, you probably don't care for the comfort of religion because you never had it.
Yeah, if you never had it, it's just this weird thing. They're just like, would you like all these extra layers on your turkey? No, I don't need them. Let's just start eating dinner. And we don't have prayer and normal meals or anything like that. So my grandfather, they pray before every meal though. So I'm just used to it for the family things.
Oh yeah, and they do it in my family's house completely. It doesn't, even though half of my immediate family doesn't even go to church anymore. They have a prayer at every meal. If we go over every Saturday, there's a prayer at every meal. Now the funny thing is, and it was kind of funny, one year, they were talking about Thanksgiving prayer, and my dad gave it, and it was probably about 2 minutes long. And my mom it got to the end, and my mom goes, you could just shorten that up. And she's like, not everybody here cares for that. And I was like, hold on, Mom. It's okay. If this is your tradition, Mom, it's okay. Like
2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I'm more concerned my food's getting cold. And I bet that's probably what you are too. But don't pass off to do a short prayer because of the atheist in the room or the atheist family in the room. Just do your thing. And I mean, I even tell my kids to be respectful. I literally turn around and tell my kids to shut the fuck up in the middle of the prayer. Like, because my kids don't know what to do. It's kind of funny. My youngest, they all did this. They literally didn't know what to do. So they'll literally they'll ask me questions, or they'll be eating in the middle of it. Like I'll have my eyes open because I don't bow my head and close my eyes. That's my one rule.
I don't either.
No way in hell am I going to do that. I'll shut up and not say anything. I'll stand there respectfully. I won't eat my food. And every time I always catch one of my kids eating. It's like I'm snapping my fingers. And I think my family finally knows now when they start speaking a little bit louder when they start hearing me snap my fingers. I'm glaring and giving hand signs to my kids stop. Just it's only going to be 30 seconds. Fuck off. Jesus, But if you do have to give an invocation, there was another article from a humanist website, actually, humanist.com, where they actually went out and gave very detailed, multiple examples of what you can say if you get asked to say grace. Or here's this: if you don't want a religious-led Thanksgiving prayer, you can offer to do the grace, and you can say one of these other things. Now, you're going to get probably some gruff from Grandpa and Grandma who want to hear God and Jesus in it, but these ones are pretty, they're pretty non-controversial. They don't talk about anything. They take the niceties of religion, drop the God, and let it be.
Well, the website itself, the Humanist, says it all right then and there. It is so sweeping, general, and warm and fuzzy and nice. So they are quite good. I was reading through them. I was surprised. I was like, that you could put that pretty much anywhere. The only ones that wouldn't like something like that are the angry people that a non-believer is saying something like that. That would be the only place I could see any of these causing any controversy.
Yeah. So for example, I'll read one of them. They say, corn and grain, meat and milk, upon our table width and length, with loving thought and careful craft, through so many hands have passed. Essence of life, fruits of our labor, bringing substantiation and strength to ours and all our neighbors. May we all be grateful for all we have and compassionate to those without. That's pretty neutral. That's a little political, actually, I guess. If you think about it.
That feels like a big warm hug.
Yeah. And, it's like milk and honey, kind of like they had in the Bible, right?
Sure, I guess. News to me, pal.
You never had milk and honey in the Bible? Yeah.
Nope. I remember I got to drink wine when I was really young because of the Jewish ceremonies that say you're supposed to drink a glass of wine after whatever synagogue speaking thing. I don't know if they call them prayers or whatever, but like I remember that stuff was kind of strange. And my cousin and I were like, "Dude, we get to drink wine," and the family just took sips, but we were like just down the hatch for the whole class. And they're like, and so they're like, "No, the kid." And then they're like, "No, the boys don't get any more wine because they just drank all of theirs."
Well, and what's funny is, that's why Baptists have grape juice, is because they have too many of the naughty kids. Like I would be the same kid, but like, oh, here's nasty tasting grape juice, but it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different examples in there and on how to navigate, your relationship with your family on Thanksgiving. And, as we close the show out, I don't want to say you have to do any of these things or this is how you should, live your life and talk about these things. But, I kind of feel there's a little bit of truth to these things, especially after last week's episode. We talked with Tim having to navigate this. His Thanksgiving's probably not as fun as yours or I are. I mean, this is only his second or third year out. It's not going to be something that, comes as naturally to him as it does to the rest of us. And I don't know, it's one of those things where we sit around and we could talk about it, but how do we help others? How do we make others feel more comfortable? And isn't this time the time to be thankful? And if you don't want to go to your family, don't go to your family then. I'll be honest, I don't see a lot of my family anymore. Not all by my choice. A lot of them have disowned me, but in some aspects, I'm better off for it. I get to choose my family. And I'm hoping that everybody out there finds himself in a situation where they're able to choose. They're able to say what they want. They're able to, believe what they want. And that they can feel love and comfort no matter what situation they're in. And if you know somebody who's not able to be open, send them a message on Facebook. Give them a hug. Don't out them publicly, but tell them, hey, we love you and we're here for you. And if you want to vent to us about your family, great. I'm in the CFI Living Without Religion group. That's a great place if you're local and you want to vent about horrible holiday disasters. Anyway, thank you all from Cellar Door Skeptics. Have a happy Thanksgiving as much as you can. We'll see you next week with another amazing episode talking about guns, 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 and science, science, science. Anyway, have a great weekend and enjoy your time with your family. Have a good night, everyone.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.